about the survey made by Statistica, a very reputable data gathering entity. The question was similar to the question of Okta. The question of Statistica in 2022 reads, are you in favor or not in favor of passing a measure legalizing divorce here in the Philippines? And what was the result? Yes, 50%, no, 28%, lacks knowledge, 5.7%, and undecided, 6.2%. Actually, the Statistica methodology included a fourth possible answer, which was lack knowledge. Because definitely, many people do not even know that there is a pending bill on absolute divorce in the Philippines. So they should be given that option to say lack knowledge. But anyway, the point is this statistical data or surveys are not inviolable. So they are subject to variant interpretation depending on the questions asked, how they are framed, and so forth and so on. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, distinguished colleague, Mr. Speaker. Clearly, the SWS survey was very limited to those already separated. Now, we have a similar question in a Statistica, but then that's 2022. Mr. Speaker, I am talking about just 5 months ago. And this is October 2023, when there is already discussions in Congress about this absolute bill, a divorce bill. So therefore, this will prevail over the other two. So therefore, clearly, the Filipino people do not want divorce. Majority do not want. 9 is undecided. How many are in favor of divorce? Only 41%. So this is not the clamor of the people. Because the people of the Philippines see that if there is divorce, it will break families up. We will have a lot of children growing up with only one parent, Mr. Chairman. That's the worst debacle that a child can have. Can I now go to my next point, Mr. Chairman? Unless our distinguished colleague will rebut my statement.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the survey's accuracy will depend on the methodology employed and the question asked. And I am of the firm opinion that with respect to the Okta survey, it was flawed because the question was not put in a circumstantial setting. It was so general. But in any way, Mr. Speaker, the distinguished sponsor made a statement that in a divorce situation, co-parenting is a debacle. If he wants me to answer that question, I am ready to answer that question.
I was saying that it's a debacle for one of children with only one biological parent rearing the child. That is my point, not co-parenting.
So I will answer that. I recall that on February 20, 2024, the Honorable Rodriguez manifested that divorce is a debacle for the co-parenting because a child is only nurtured by one parent instead of two. This is a misconception. Although what is ideal is co-parenting and a marriage which is enduring and loving, just like the majority of marriages in the Philippines, it is not divorce which destroys co-parenting, but an irremediably failed marriage where couples in constant conflict, abusive relationship, marital infidelity or abandonment fail to effectively guide their children who are suffocated in a toxic marriage. Consequently, divorce offers a solution so that while apart, the father and the mother can continue their parenting rules as decreed by the court, either as the parent with the primary custody, as the offended spouse, or the parent with secondary custody or pastoral rights in the case of the offending spouse. And under the bill, the family court will adjudicate with respect to the custody of children, and co-parenting could still exist. There are several studies which would show that co-parenting is even enhanced by divorce because the divorced parents would even compete for the care and affection from their children. In other words, divorce is not a debacle for co-parenting.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I hope the answers will, the way our gentleman is answering, it seems it's already a privileged speech. So now let me proceed to debunk. If you regress the data, Mr. Speaker, which I am going to be able to present to this assembly, divorce law, studies in psychology, and related fields will generally show that divorce of parents has short-term and long-term harmful effects and implications for children. Does our sponsor agree with this statement?
Definitely, I do not agree. Because
Thank you.
the scientific and empirical studies would show that divorce would have beneficial effects not only to the divorced spouses, but even to their children who become more independent, resilient, loving, and would even respect the institution of marriage in their own lives.
Thank you, distinguished colleague, Mr. Speaker. Let me now regress the data that studies should show that a big negative effect on children happens when the parents are divorced. I am now citing, Mr. Speaker, the article of High Conflict Separation Divorce Options for Consideration 2004 by the Government of Canada. In this particular report and study, it says here, studies relating to negative adjustments among children include the following. This is now the result of divorce. First, Jacobson, 1978, examined factors that affected the psychological adjustment of children within 12 months after the marital separation. She examined 51 children in 30 families. 30 families, divorce, 51 children. And found that the greater the amount of time lost with a father since the marital separation, the greater the maladjustment of the child in areas such as aggression and learning disability. See, he is maladjusted. He is now aggressive. He is now has learning disability. Mr. Speaker, very clear. Jacobson, 1978, quoted in the report of the government of Canada, is that examining 50 children in 30 families, they found that the greater amount lost with the father because their separation will result to the maladjustment of the child, resulting in aggression and learning disability. What does the honorable gentleman say about this article on tracking the effects of divorce by the government of Canada?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for that privileged speech also.
Very short.
Well, that report is dwarfed by more recent studies. In an article published on June 13, 2023, a WISECAN, an academic, child therapist, and parenting coach, enumerated the following positive effects of divorce on children and families. 1. Improve emotional well-being. 2. Reduce exposure to conflict. 3. Increase independence and resilience. 4. Enhance parent-child relationship. Let me underscore that. Enhance parent-child relationships. 5. Positive role modeling. 6. Better co-parenting dynamics. Let me also underscore that. Better co-parenting dynamics. 7. Improve academic performance. 8. Personal growth and self-discovery. 9. Financial stability. 10. Social support networks. 11. Maintaining healthy boundaries. 12. Cultivating empathy and compassion. 13. Enhance communication skills. And 14. Promoting healthy relationships. That virtually debunks the data provided by the distinguished interpellator. Experts and scientists like Kathy Hardy-Williams have found the following positive effects of divorce on children. Children often become more resilient and adaptable because they must develop coping strategies for adapting to different situations and to change. Children develop a recognition for the significance of the commitment marriage requires, among other many findings. So these are countervailing studies, empirical studies on the favorable effects of divorce, not only on the spouses, but also their children.
Mr. Speaker, I would now cite the study of Peterson and Zill. It analyzed data from the National Surveys of Children in the United States, gathering information about 2,301 children. Peterson and Zill concluded that children were least depressed and withdrawn when they live with both parents, rather than only with the biological mother. The depressed withdrawn score for children living with a single mother was especially high. especially for boys, an antisocial behavior was higher among those living with mothers than those with intact families. However, we say here that in this particular case, a child living with a parent with the opposite sex was especially prone to problem behavior, according to Peterson and Zill. In other words, if they live with another person, not the biological father or mother, they are prone to problem behavior. What is the answer of the honorable sponsor to Peterson and Zill?
Well, Your Honor, we can continue in perpetuity citing authorities. This can be authoritative for one side and authoritative for another side. So I think it would be an exercise in redundancy to really cite all of these counter arguments and studies. So I would end this portion of our interpellation with that statement.
It is the right of the member to interpolate, Mr. Speaker. So we cannot be controlled by the sponsor. And we are
I'm not
just
controlling
putting
this
in
sponsor.
record.
I was just controlling myself from further answering because this is a redundant series
then
of citation of authorities. But he can continue to cite these authorities if he wants to, and I would be willing to listen.
Thank you very much for that graciousness of our sponsor. Stolberg, Kampler, Currier, and Wells examine individual, familial, and environmental determinants of children's post-divorce adjustment and maladjustment. Environmental influences included, Mr. Speaker, physical changes in the neighborhood, such as moving to a new neighborhood, social skills required to meet new friends, and communication skills needed to express the increased anger that unwanted changes brought. Familial influences included poor child management skills that may lead to aggression in children. Comparing 87 divorced mothers and 47 intact families, the authors concluded, Mr. Speaker, that a child's life change events, such as moving to a new house or changing schools, are the most significant determinants of a child's post-divorce maladjustment. That is what was stated. Can we hear the comment of the distinguished sponsor?
Mr. Speaker, the entire world, except for two countries, have legitimized divorce and have upheld that divorce is beneficial for both parents and children. I cannot believe that the entire world is in unanimity in blunder in providing for divorce, which would be eventually beneficial to children. We cannot suffer children from suffering from experiencing the constant conflict between their parents and would affect them psychologically and even culturally, educationally. So my answer is, irrespective of this research that's being cited by the distinguished interpellator, the world has already decided that divorce is legitimate and valid, and it is not detrimental to children.
Thank you, distinguished sponsor. Mr. Speaker, Judith Wallerstein, one of the foremost experts on the effects of divorce on children, said that she was involved in a 25-year study of the responses of children and adolescents to parental separation and divorce. It was based on interviews with 100 children, 130 children, and the parents. After 25 years, this is the result. The individuals who were children in these situations, these are from divorce and separation, spoke sadly of their lost childhood, their sadness and anger, and their yearning for both parents to take care of them. Mr. Speaker, this diminished nurturing and protection during their growing up years was the legacy divorce left upon them. Half the young people in the sample were involved as adolescents, here you go, in serious drug and alcohol abuse. Over half ended with lower educational degrees than their parents had obtained. At adulthood, they feared that their own adult relationship, Mr. Speaker, at adulthood, these children coming from divorced parents feared that their own adult relationships would fail as their parents' relationship did. Therefore, we ask our distinguished colleague, is he not aware of this? That this breeds sadness and anger, higher degrees of serious drug and alcohol abuse for these children that were interviewed, Mr. Speaker.
What I am aware of, Mr. Speaker, is that children in broken, irremediably shattered marriages, in an environment which is toxic and constant conflict between the parents, would be an atmosphere not conducive to the physical and mental well-being of children. That is why divorce is a solution, so that the parents can be in amity while they are co-parenting separately their children. These studies I have shown, and I will submit more studies just to abbreviate these proceedings to the House on all of these studies showing that divorce is beneficial to both the parents and their children.
I'll continue, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, distinguished colleague. According to continue with Judith Wallerstein, the impact of divorce hits them, that means the children, most cruelly as they go in search of love, sexual intimacy, and commitment. Their lack of inner images of a man and a woman in marriage, and their memories of the parents' failure to sustain the marriage badly hobbles their search, leading them to heartbreak and even despair. We know the response of the honorable sponsor.
Well, definitely that enduring conflict in a broken marriage is a complete disaster to children. According to child psychologists, Parents who model positive relationship behavior, including ending partnerships that are unhealthy, toxic, or simply not working out, can show their children everyone deserves to be happy and healthy relationships. By not settling for less themselves, they can help their children learn to make similar choices. Children do much better when their parents are happy and doing well, physically and mentally. Sometimes finding this state of well-being and happiness requires ending the marriage or partnership which has broken down and become irreparable.
Thank you, distinguished colleague. Next, Mr. Speaker. Amato and Keith examined 92 studies that compared children living in divorced single-parent families with children living in continuously intact families, in accordance to the measures of well-being. Many studies found that children of divorced families experience lower levels of well-being regardless of scholastic achievement, conduct, psychological development, self-esteem, social competence, and relationships with other children. The authors examined these studies from three possible explanation perspectives. One, children of divorce often experience a decrease. This is what is the effect, Mr. Speaker. Children of divorce often experience a decrease in parental attention, help, and supervision. That divorce typically leads to a decline in the standard of living of mother-headed families, often falling below poverty level, and that conflict between parents before and during separation causes severe stress among children. The results of this analysis suggested that children of divorce are handicapped, Mr. Speaker, by the absence of a parent, and somewhat less strongly supported the belief that economic decline accounts for some of the negative consequences of divorce. The hypothesis best supported by the evidence was that there is a low level of well-being for children of divorced parents. Amato and Keith concluded that based on the data from 37 studies, outcomes associated with parental divorce include effects on psychological well-being, and these are, parentheses, depression and low life satisfaction. Decreased family well-being, socioeconomic well-being, decreased socioeconomic well-being, parentheses, low, resulting in low educational attainment, low income, and low occupational prestige. So in this particular case, what does our sponsors say about this Amato and Keith survey of 92 studies of children, comparing them, children in intact families and children with only one biological parent?
Mr. Speaker, I will reiterate my previous answers to similar questions by the distinguished interpolator.
Thank you, distinguished colleague.